The Caliph is the head of state in a caliphate, and the title for the ruler of the Islamic Ummah, an Islamic community ruled by the Shari'ah. The word derives from the Arabic AO registered trademark USUO copyright Caliph 4. Following Muhammad's death in 632, the early leaders of the Muslim nation were called Khalifat Rasul Allah, the political successors to the Messenger of God. Some academics prefer to transliterate the term as Khalifa. A Khalifa is either a female caliph or the wife or widow of a caliph. There was one known instance in history that a Caliph ruled a caliphate. Sitt al-Mulk was regent of the Fatimid Caliphate from 1021 to 1023. Some Caliphas, such as Zaynab and an-Nafzawiyyah and Al-Khayzuran bint Atta, wielded great influence in the courts of their husbands. Succession to Muhammad. In his book The Early Islamic Conquests, Frederick Dunner argues that the standard Arabian practice at the time was for the prominent men of a kinship group, or tribe, to gather after a leader's death and elect a leader from amongst themselves. There was no specified procedure for this shura or consultation. Candidates were usually, but not necessarily, from the same lineage as the deceased leader. Capable men who would lead well were preferred over an ineffectual heir. Sunni Muslims believe and confirm that Abu Bakr was chosen by the community and that this was the proper procedure. Sunnis further argue that a caliph should ideally be chosen by election or community consensus. Shia Muslims believe that Ali, the son-in-law and cousin of Muhammad, should have replaced Muhammad as caliph and that caliphs were to assume authority through appointment by God rather than being chosen by the people. Word usage/etymology. The word caliph is derived from the Arabic word Khalifa meaning successor, substitute, or lieutenant. In Matthew S. Gordon's The Rise of Islam, Caliph is said to translate to deputy of God. It is used in the Quran to establish Adam's role as representative of God on earth. Khalifa is also used to describe the belief that man's role, in his real nature, is as Khalifa or viceroy to Allah. The word is also most commonly used for the Islamic leader of the Ummah. Starting with Abu Bakr and his line of successors. The first four caliphs, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, and Ali ibn Abi Talib are commonly known by Sunnis, mainly, as the Khulafa unregistered trademark Rashidun caliphs. History, succession and recognition. Sunni and Shia Muslims differ on the legitimacy of the reigns of the Rashidun caliphs, the first four caliphs. The Sunnis follow the caliphates of all four, while the Shiites recognize only the caliphate of Ali and the short caliphate of his son Hussein. This schism occurred following the death of Muhammad. According to Sunni beliefs, Muhammad gave no specific directions as to the choosing of his successor when he died. At this time there were two customary means of selecting a leader, having a hereditary leader for general purposes, and choosing someone with good qualities in times of crisis or opportunities for action. While Sunni and Shia Islam differ sharply on the conduct of a caliph and the right relations between a leader and a community, they do not differ on the underlying theory of stewardship. Both abhor waste of natural resources in particular to show off or demonstrate power. In the initial stages the latter way of choosing leadership prevailed among the leading companions of Muhammad. Abu Bakr was elected as the first caliph or successor to Muhammad, with the other companions of Muhammad giving an oath of allegiance to him. Those opposing this method thought that Ali, Muhammad's nearest relative, should have succeeded him. However, the appointment of the next two caliphs varied from the election of Abu Bakr. On his deathbed, Abu Bakr appointed Umar as his successor without an election by the community of believers. The oath, approving the appointment of Umar, was taken only by the companions present in Medina at the time. This led to certain groups disputing the authority of Umar. Umar also altered the way his successor would be found. Before he was assassinated, Umar decided that his successor would come from a group of 6. This group included Ali and Uthman, another companion of Muhammad. These 6 would have to establish from among themselves Umar's successor. Ultimately Uthman was chosen as Umar's successor, becoming the third caliph. After the assassination of Uthman, Ali was elected as the fourth caliph. Ali's caliphate and the rise of the Umayyad dynasty. Ali's reign as Caliph was plagued by great turmoil and internal strife. Ali was faced with multiple rebellions and insurrections. The primary one came from a misunderstanding on the part of Muawiyah, the governor of Damascus, marking the beginning of the end of the caliphs. The Persians, taking advantage of this, infiltrated the two armies and attacked the other army, causing chaos and internal hatred between the companions at the Battle of Siffin. The battle lasted several months, resulting in a stalemate. In order to avoid further bloodshed, Ali agreed to negotiate with Muawiyah. This caused a faction of approximately 4,000 people that would be known as the Kharijites, to abandon the fight. After defeating the Kharijites at the Battle of Nahrawan, Ali would later be assassinated by the Khurayite Ibn Uljam. Ali's son Hussam was elected as the next caliph, but handed his title to Muawiyah a few months later. Muawiyah became the fifth caliph, establishing the Umayyad dynasty, named after the great-grandfather of Uthman and Muawiyah, Umayyah ibn Abd Shams. Umayyads. Under the Umayyads, the Muslim empire grew rapidly. To the west, Muslim rule expanded across North Africa and into Spain. To the east, it expanded through Iran and ultimately to India. This made it one of the largest empires in the history of West Eurasia, extending its entire breadth. However, the Umayyad dynasty was not universally supported within Islam itself. Some Muslims supported prominent early Muslims like Az-Zubair. Others felt that only members of Muhammad's clan, the Banu Hashim, or his own lineage, the descendants of Allah, should rule. There were numerous rebellions against the Umayyads, as well as splits within the Umayyad ranks. Eventually, supporters of the Banu Hisham and Alid claims united to bring down the Umayyads in 750. However, the Shiite-e-Allah, the party of Allah, were again disappointed when the Abbasid dynasty took power, as the Abbasids were descended from Muhammad's uncle, Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, and not from Allah. Abbasids. The Abbasids would provide an unbroken line of rulers for over 5 centuries. It consolidated Islamic rule and cultivated great intellectual and cultural developments in the Middle East. But by 940 the power of the Caliphate under the Abbasids was waning as non-Arabs, particularly the Turkish, gained military power, and sultans and emirs became increasingly independent. However, the Caliphate endured as both a symbolic position and a unifying entity for the Islamic world. During the period of the Abbasid dynasty, Abbasid claims to the Caliphate did not go unchallenged. The Shah Said ibn Khuzan of the Fatimid dynasty, which claimed descent from Muhammad through his daughter, claimed the title of Caliph in 909, creating a separate line of caliphs in North Africa. Initially covering Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia and Libya, the Fatimid caliphs extended their rule for the next 150 years, taking Egypt and Palestine, before the Abbasid dynasty was able to turn the tide, limiting Fatimid rule to Egypt. The Fatimid dynasty finally ended in 1171. The Umayyad dynasty, which had survived and come to rule over the Muslim provinces of Spain, reclaimed the title of Caliph in 929, lasting until it was overthrown in 1031. This period of upheaval was known as the Fitna of Al-Andalus. Fatimids. The Fatimid Caliphate or al-Fatimiyyah was a Berber Shiite dynasty that ruled over varying areas of the Maghreb, Egypt, Malta and the Levant from January 5, 909 to 1171, during the time that the Abbasid Caliphate ruled from Baghdad. The Caliphate was ruled by the Fatimids, who established the Egyptian city of Cairo as their capital. The term Fatimite is sometimes used to refer to the citizens of this caliphate. The ruling elite of the state belonged to the Ismaili branch of Shi'ism. The leaders of the dynasty were also Shiite Ismaili religious tribes, hence, they had a religious significance to Ismaili Muslims. They are also part of the chain of holders of the title of Caliph, as recognized by Shiites majority. Therefore, this constitutes a rare period in history in which some form of Shi'ism and the title of Caliph were united to any degree. The Fatimids, however, are not recognized nor counted by the Sunnis as a caliphate. With exceptions, the Fatimids were recorded to exercise a slight degree of tolerance towards non-Shiite sects of Islam, as well as towards Jews, Christians and pagans, due to the Shiite minority in every single land they conquered. 1. Shadow Caliphate. 1258 saw the conquest of Baghdad and the murder of the Abbasid ruler al-Musta'sim by Mongol forces under Hulagu Khan. A surviving member of the Abbasid house was installed as Caliph at Cairo under the patronage of the Mamluk Sultanate 3 years later. However, the authority of this line of caliphs was heavily restrained to ceremonial and religious matters, and Muslim historians refer to it as a shadow of Abbasid rule. Ottomans. As the Ottoman Empire grew in size and strength, Ottoman rulers beginning with Mehmed II began to claim caliphal authority. Their claim was strengthened when the Ottomans defeated the Mamluks in 1517 and annexed the Arab lands. The last Abbasid ruler at Cairo, al-Mutawakkil III, became a political prisoner and was taken to Constantinople, where he was forced to surrender his authority to Selim I. However, Ottoman rulers were known by the title of Sultan. According to Barthold, the first time the title of Caliph was used as a political instead of symbolic religious title by the Ottomans was in the Treaty of Kar 1/4 Apicavolt 1/4 K Canonical ending the Russo-Turkish War of 1768–1774. The outcome of this war was disastrous for the Ottomans. Large territories, including those with large Muslim populations such as the Crimean Peninsula, were lost to the Christian Russian Empire. However, the Ottomans under Abdülhamid I claimed a diplomatic victory, the recognition of themselves as protectors of Muslims in Russia as part of the peace treaty. This was the first time the Ottoman Caliph was acknowledged as having political significance outside of Ottoman borders by a European power. As a consequence of this diplomatic victory, as the Ottoman borders were shrinking, the powers of the Ottoman Caliph increased. Around 1880 Sultan Abdülhamid II reasserted the title as a way of countering creeping European colonialism in Muslim lands. His claim was most fervently accepted by the Bareillis of British India. By the eve of the First World War, the Ottoman state, despite its weakness vis-à-vis Europe, represented the largest and most powerful independent Islamic political entity. But the Sultan also enjoyed some authority beyond the borders of his shrinking empire as Caliph of Muslims in Egypt, India and Central Arabia. Abolition of the institution. The Caliphate movement was a pan-Islamic, political protest campaign launched by Muslims in British India to influence the British government and to protect the Ottoman Empire at the end of the First World War. After the Armistice of Mudros of October 1918 with the military occupation of Istanbul and Treaty of Versailles, the position of the Ottomans was uncertain. The movement to protect or restore the Ottomans gained force after the Treaty of Zavres, which imposed the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire and gave Greece a powerful position in Anatolia, to the distress of the Turks. They called for help and the movement was the result. The movement had collapsed by late 1922. The new ruler of Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk I/4 wanted a secular state. On March 3, 1924, the Turkish Grand National Assembly dissolved the institution of the Caliphate. Prior to its re-establishment, occasional demonstrations were held calling for the re-establishment of the Caliphate. Organizations which call to the re-establishment of the Caliphate include Hizb ut-Tahrir, the Muslim Brotherhood. Ahmadiyya Caliphate. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community, a messianic movement in Islam, believes that the Ahmadiyya Caliphate established after the passing of the community's founder Mtsulum Ahmad is the re-establishment of the Rashidun Caliphate, as prophesied by Muhammad. The current successor to Mtsulum Ahmad is Caliphate al-Mawzi V, Mtsamasrur Ahmad residing in London, England. The Caliph has over 10 to 20 million followers in 200 countries and territories of the world. The Ahmadiyya Caliphate is not recognized by mainstream Islam because of few theological differences. The community continues to operate under this structure, with the Khalifa having overall authority for all religious and organizational matters. According to Ahmadis, it is not essential for a Khalifa to be the head of a state, rather the spiritual and religious significance of the Caliphate al-Mawzi is emphasized. Ahmadis believe that the Ahmadiyya Caliphate is the re-establishment of the Rashidun Caliphate. The Islamic State. On June 29, 2014, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant declared the territories under its control to be a new caliphate, naming Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi as the caliph. the ISIS has fought 2 armies without air force and heavy artillery and won substantial territories. They are now self-financing, having control over crude petroleum oil wells. In fact, they can now sustain a long war with these oil revenues. Titular uses, religious leaders. In 19th-century Sudan, Muhammad Ahmed, so-called the Mahdi, was succeeded by Abdullahi ibn Muhammad the Khalifa. In the Ahmadiyya sect, Caliphate al-Mawzi is the title of the successors of his founding messiah, except in the breakaway Lahore branch, which is led by its own emirs. Secular offices. In Morocco, the Shari'ifian monarch awarded the title Khalifa or Caliph, here meaning viceroy, to royal princes, including future sultans, who represented the crown in a part of the sultanate, especially in the former royal capitals Marrakesh, Fes and Means, also in other Mers cities, for example in Shari'ah, Casablanca, Tafilalt, Tadla, Sitt, in the valley of the Dra River and in Tetuan, but also, in the 20th century, as irrevocably fully mandated representative of the Sultan in the Spanish zone, known after him in Spanish as El Jalifato, besides the Alto Comisario of the colonial protector. Spain, which called his office al-Khalifa, April 19, 1913–November 9, 1923 Muley al-Mahdi bin Ismail bin Muhammad, November 9, 1923–November 9, 1925 vacant, November 9, 1925–March 16, 1941 Muley Hassan bin al-Mahdi, March 16, 1941, October 1945 vacant, October 1945–April 7, 1956 Muley Hassan bin al-Mahdi. Sokoto Caliphate. The leaders of Sokoto Caliphate have used the title Caliph, Amir al-Mu'minin, from 1804. Other uses. Khalifa can have a definition, be a first name, or family or tribe name. Like many titles, Khalifa also occurs in many names. It is the family name of the Al-Khalifa dynasty, rulers of the peninsular Arab nation of Bahrain, who are descended from the Bani Utub tribe. Authority of the successor. The question of who should succeed Muhammad was not the only issue that faced the early Muslims. They also had to clarify the extent of the leader's powers. Muhammad, during his lifetime, was not only the Muslim political leader, but the Islamic prophet. All law and spiritual practice proceeded from Muhammad. Nobody claimed that his successor would be a prophet. Succession referred to political authority. The uncertainty centered on the extent of that authority. Muhammad's revelations from God were soon written down, which was a supreme authority, limiting what any leader could legitimately command, though few caliphs actually abided by it. However, some later caliphs did believe that they had authority to rule in matters not specified in the Quran. They believed themselves to be temporal and spiritual leaders in issues not commanded in the Quran, and insisted that implicit obedience to the caliph in all things not contradicting the Quran, was the hallmark of the good Muslim. Patricia Crone and Martin Hines, in their book God's Caliph, outline the evidence for an early, expansive view of the caliph's importance and authority. They argue that this view of the caliph was eventually nullified by the rising power of the ulama, or Islamic lawyers, judges, scholars, and religious specialists. The ulama insisted on their right to determine what was legal and orthodox. The proper Muslim leader, in the ulama's opinion, was the leader who enforced the rulings of the ulama, rather than making rulings of his own, unless he himself was qualified in Islamic law. Conflict between caliph and ulama, akin to a modern judiciary, was a recurring theme in early Islamic history, and ended in the victory of the ulama. The caliph was henceforth limited to temporal rule only. He would be considered a righteous caliph if he were guided by the ulama. Crone and Hines argue that Shia Muslims, with their expansive view of the powers of the imamate, have preserved some of the beliefs of the early Umayyad dynasty which ironically, they despise. Crone and Hines' thesis is not accepted by the scholars, however, who have evidence that the reason behind this is that the Rashidun and Umayyad leaders were ulama themselves. Most mainstream Muslims believe that the caliph has always been a merely temporal ruler, and that the ulama has always been responsible for enforcing orthodox, Islamic law. As for the special role ascribed to the first 4 caliphs, Islamic tradition holds that they were followers the Quran and the way or Sunnah of Muhammad in all things and, for this reason, calls them the Rashidun, the rightly guided caliphs. They also believe that the Khilafah ended towards the end of Ali's reign and not with the fall of the Ottomans. Every Muslim leader after Ali and Muawiyah, they say, were not legitimate due to they not being accepted by all the Muslims. Caliphs are not a significant part of mainstream Islam as opposed to the Shiites. Al-Ghazali on the desired character traits for administration, Al-Ghazali's Nasihat al-Mulk, or Advice for Kings, part of the NASA-registered trademark Hadith genre, gave 10 different ethics of royal administration. The ruler should understand the importance and danger of the authority entrusted to him. In authority there is great blessing, since he who exercises it righteously obtained unsurpassed happiness, but if any ruler fails to do so he incurs torment surpassed only by the torment for unbelief. The ruler should always be thirsting to meet devout religious scholars and ask them for advice. The ruler should understand that he must not covet the wives of other men and be content with personally refraining from injustice, but must discipline his slave troops, servants, and officers and never tolerate unjust conduct by them. For he will be interrogated not only about his own unjust deeds but also about those of his staff. The ruler should not be dominated by pride. For pride gives rise to the dominance of anger, and will impel him to revenge. Anger is the evil genius and blight of the intellect. If anger is becoming dominant it will be necessary for the ruler in all his affairs to bend his inclinations in the direction of forgiveness and make a habit of generosity and forbearance unless he is to be like the wild beasts. In every situation that arises, the ruler should figure that he is the subject and the other person is the holder of authority. He should not sanction for others anything that he would not sanction for himself. For if he would do so he would be making fraudulent and treasonable use of the authority entrusted to him. The ruler should not disregard the attendance of petitioners at his court and should beware of the danger of so doing. He should solve the grievances of the Muslims. The ruler should not form a habit of indulging the passions. Although he might dress more finely or eat more sumptuously, he should be content with all that he has. For without contentment, just conduct will not be possible. The ruler should make the utmost effort to behave gently and avoid governing harshly. The ruler should endeavor to keep all the subjects pleased with him. The ruler should not let himself be so deluded by the praise he gets from any who approach him as to believe that all the subjects are pleased with him. On the contrary, such praise is entirely due to fear. He must therefore appoint trustworthy persons to gather intelligence and inquire about his standing among the people, so that he may be able to learn his faults from men's tongues. The ruler should not give satisfaction to any person if a contravention of God's law would be required to please him, for no harm will come from such a person's displeasure. Single Caliph for the Muslim world. According to the Sahih Muslim Hadith, Muhammad said, "The children of Israel have been governed by prophets. Whenever a prophet died another prophet succeeded him. But there will be no prophet after me. There will be caliphs and they will number many." They asked, "What then do you order us?" He said, "Fulfill bay'ah to them, only the first of them, and give them their dues. For verily Allah will ask them about what he entrusted them with." According to the Zarat Reza al-Alh of Ibn Isa Abu Bakr, Muhammad's closest friend, said, "It is forbidden for Muslims to have two emirs, for this would cause differences in their affairs and concepts, their unity would be divided and disputes would break out amongst them. The sunnah would then be abandoned, the bid'ah would spread and fitna would grow, and that is in no one's interests." Umar bin al-Khattab, another disciple of Muhammad, is reported by the same source to have said, "There is no way for two together at any one time," referring in the quotes above to two leaders in the same land. Imam al-Nawawi, a 12th century authority of the Sunni Shafi'i madhab, said, "It is forbidden to give an oath to two caliphs or more, even in different parts of the world and even if they are far apart." Notable caliphs: Rashidun, Abu Bakr, first Rashidun Caliph. Subdued rebel tribes in the Ridda Wars. Umar, second Rashidun Caliph. During his reign, the Islamic Empire expanded to include Egypt, Jerusalem and Persia. Uthman ibn Affan, third Rashidun Caliph. The various written copies of the Quran were standardized under his direction. Killed by rebels. Ali, fourth Rashidun Caliph. Considered by Shia Muslims however to be the first Imam. His reign was fraught with internal conflict, with Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan and Amr ibn al-As controlling the Levant and Egypt regions independently of Ali. Hassan ibn Ali, fifth Caliph. Considered as rightly guided by several historians. He abdicated his right to the caliphate in favor of Muawiyah I in order to end the potential for ruinous civil war. Muawiyah I, first caliph of the Umayyad dynasty. Muawiyah instituted dynastic rule by appointing his son Yazid I as his successor, a trend that would continue through subsequent caliphates. Umar ibn Abd al-Aziz, Umayyad caliph who is considered one of the finest rulers in Muslim history. He is also considered by some to be among the rightly guided caliphs. Harun al-Rashid, Abbasid caliph during whose reign Baghdad became the world's prominent center of trade, learning, and culture. Harun is the subject of many stories in the famous 1001 Nights. He established the legendary library Bait al-Hikmah. Al-Ma'mun, a great Abbasid patron of Islamic philosophy and science. Fawzi Sultan Mehmed, an Ottoman caliph highly regarded for his long succession of campaigns which resulted in a tremendous extension of direct Ottoman rule. Sulayman the Magnificent, an Ottoman caliph during whose reign the Ottoman Empire reached its zenith. Abdulhamid II, last Ottoman caliph to rule with independent, absolute power. Abdur I al-Mecid II, last caliph of the Ottoman dynasty. Nominally the 37th head of the Ottoman dynasty. Several Arabic surnames found throughout the Middle East are derived from the word Khalifa. These include Caliph, Khalifa, Caliph, 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 and Caliph. The usage of this title as a surname is comparable to the existence of surnames such as king, duke, and noble in the English language. Dynasties. The more important dynasties include the Umayyad dynasty in Damascus, followed by the Abbasid dynasty in Baghdad, and later in Cairo. The Shiite Fatimid dynasty in North Africa and Egypt. The Rumanids, a surviving branch of the Damascus Umayyads, established in exile as emirs of Cordoba, Spain, declared themselves caliphs. The Almohad dynasty in North Africa and Spain traced their descent not from Muhammad, but from a Puritanic reformer in Morocco who claimed to be the Mahdi, bringing down the decadent Almoravid Emirate, and whose son established a sultanate and claimed to be a caliph. The Ottomans' rulers claimed caliphal authority beginning with Mehmed II. Their claim was strengthened in 1517 when the Ottomans defeated the Mamluk Sultanate of Cairo and made Egypt part of the Ottoman Empire. Note on the overlap of Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates. After the massacre of the Umayyad clan by the Abbasids, one lone prince escaped and fled to North Africa, which remained loyal to the Umayyads. This was Abd ar-Rahman I. From there, he proceeded to Spain, where he overthrew and united the provinces conquered by previous Umayyad caliphs. From 756 to 929, this Umayyad domain in Spain was an independent emirate, until Abd ar-Rahman III reclaimed the title of caliph for his dynasty. The Umayyad emirs of Spain are not listed in the summary below because they did not claim the caliphate until 929. For a full listing of all the Umayyad rulers in Spain see the Umayyad article. Claims to the caliphate. Many local rulers in Islamic countries have claimed to be caliphs. Most claims were ignored outside their limited domains. In many cases, these claims were made by rebels against established authorities and ended when the rebellion was crushed. Notable claimants include Abd Ali ibn al-Zubayr, who held the Tihama and the Hijaz against the Umayyads. Certain scholars considered him a legitimate caliph, being a close companion of Muhammad. His rebellion, centered in Mecca, was crushed by the Umayyad general Hajjaj. Hajjaj's attack caused some damage in Mecca, and necessitated the rebuilding of the Kaaba. Caliph of the Sudan, a Songhai king of the Sahel. The Zaydi Imams of Yemen used the title for centuries and continued to use the title until 1962. Hussein bin Ali, Sharif of Mecca, proclaimed himself Caliph of the Arabs on March 3, 1924, 2 days after the office was abolished by the Grand National Assembly of Turkey. Hussein's claim was not accepted, and in 1925 he was driven from the Hijaz by the forces of Ibn Saud due to his lack of support for Shari'ah. He continued to use the title of Caliph during his remaining life in exile, until his death in 1931. Kartuswiryo, leader of the Darul Islam rebellion that aimed to establish a caliphate in Indonesia. While he seldom explicitly claimed to be Caliph, he was regarded as one by many supporters. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was declared Caliph on June 29, 2014 by the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, of which he is the leader. See also, Caliphate, List of Caliphs, Shiite Imams, Amir al-Mu'minin, Caliphate al-Mawzid, Sheikh al-Islam, Succession to Muhammad, Mahdi, Sokoto Caliphate, References. Bibliography, Arnold, T. W. Khalifa. In Hautzma, M.Th. E. J. Brill's First Encyclopedia of Islam, 1913–1936. Volume 4. Leiden, Brill ppA 881–885. ISBN A978-90-04-09790-2. Retrieved July 23, 2010. Crone, Patricia, and Martin Hines. God's Caliph, Religious Authority in the First Centuries of Islam. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1986. ISBN 0-521-32185-9. Dunner, Frederick. The Early Islamic Conquests. Princeton, New Jersey, Princeton University Press, 1981. ISBN 0-691-05327-8. External links, Ahmadiyya Muslim Caliphs, worldstatesman.org, Hizb Ut-Tahrir UK website, Khalifa.com official website, Caliphate U official website.